chapter 13 of the Bhagavad Gita. The first 6 chapters spoke about different ways of attaining to absolute knowledge. And the next 6 chapters spoke about the exact forms in which the Lord could be realized, the Svarupa of the Supreme Lord Himself. In this chapter, all these things have been put together and tried to explain as one single entity. The second verse of the chapter 13 says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Idam Shariram Kaunteya Kshetramityabhidhiyate Etad yo veti tam prahuhu Kshetragna iti tad vidaha. Here the Lord says Sharira. The Sharira is called as the Kshetra. So when we say Sharira, Shara, Ira together form Sharira. These are the ones which cause us different kinds of turbulence, turmoil or violence. So what exactly are these things? So when we say Sharira, it is not the gross physical body alone. In chapter 7, the Supreme Lord explains Bhumi rapo nalo vayuhu kham mano buddhirevacha ahankara iti yamme bhinna prakritirashtadha. So Bhumihi, earth, Apaha, water, Anala is fire, Vayu is air, Kham is ether, Mana is mind, and Buddhi is intellect. So these 7 elements along with false ego, which is ahankara, these are the 8-fold Prakriti elements of the Supreme Lord. These are created by the Supreme Lord. The first 5 subtle elements of sound, touch, form, color and taste. The 5 gross elements, ether, air, fire, water and earth. The 5 senses, ear, skin, eye, tongue and nose. And the 5 working senses, the mouth or the tongue, hands, legs, the skin and the genitals. And the 3 other elements which are spoken here, the false ego, buddhi, manas, and another which is called as the mahat tattva, the superconsciousness. So these together form 24 elements of the material energy. All these are regarded as the Sharira or the actual Kshetra. And the one who knows these 24 elements is the Kshetragna. Kshetram janati iti kshetragna. That means the one who has a comprehension of all the kshetra. It is impossible that a human being has a comprehension of all these 24 elements. Here, in our case, we think we know the actions or the way the body works. But even that, the science has been exploring from ages, but still, so we don't know the 5 senses of our body itself. And how are we supposed to imagine that a human being knows all the 24 subtle elements of the Prakriti or the creation of the Lord? And hence the Kshetragna here is the Supreme Lord Himself, because only He is capable of comprehending His own 24 material forms. Out of the 24, the first 5 manifestations, earth, water, fire, air and sky, are called the Panchabhuta. And within these 5 elements are what we call as the material manifestation of physical sound, touch, form, taste and smell. The material science that we study today comprises only of these 10 elements. So Science only knows the things that we can touch, hear, create artificially, or taste and smell. So, what is beyond science is this mind, intellect, and the superconsciousness. And that's why these things are often very tough to be explained to the world of science. So, here it's very clearly explained that Kshetragna actually means not the Atman, the Jivatma which is present inside the body, and the body is not the Kshetra. The complete understanding of Kshetra is all these 24 elements of creation, and Kshetragna finally is the Supreme Lord Himself. Yes, now talking about Himsa or violence. Shara means actually to create some kind of Himsa, and Ira is the one which is actually stimulating this particular kind of Himsa. So these prakritis are these different material manifestations are the ones which are actually creating all kinds of karma, himsa, whatever we talked of so far. So this main jada prakriti, what we are talking about, is the one which is responsible for our experiences of joy, sorrow, etc. The jada prakriti is the one who creates this sensation, but she herself is not bound or not susceptible to any of these feelings or the reactions of these material energies. We have already spoken this in the form of Durga. Supreme Lord creates what is called as the Maya, which has to be crossed in order to be able to qualify for emancipation. So this Prakriti itself is what we are talking about here, which needs to be comprehended for liberation, and hence then that person who understands this becomes a Kshetragna. Now, there are so many virtues of a devotee which are explained and which have been told to be the instruments or the vehicles for realization of the Supreme Lord. The verses from 8 to 12 in the Gita talk about a lot of virtues which a devotee needs to imbibe. What is the actual interpretation of these virtues? Let's take for example the virtue of non-violence, ahimsa. When we say ahimsa, the first thing that comes to our mind is not to physically hurt or kill any other living entity. Yes, as an extension to this, we can go ahead and say there is this mental torture that we cause, even that is himsa. These are absolutely understood, and the physical torture that we give to the others is certainly in the mode of ignorance, tamas. The mental torture that we cause to others is certainly a very big form of himsa, and it comes in tamas or rajas category. We need to understand what is spiritual non-violence. There is the spiritual torture that we keep giving to many people, but we hardly know or we hardly realize that we have actually been giving a spiritual torture to other people. And the spiritual torture is the one which actually brings about the unexplained karmic results in our lives. We lament, what did I do to deserve this? The spiritual violence. How do we define or how do we try to understand the spiritual violence? There are a lot of things we can take as examples in this particular scenario. For example, a father trying to bring up a child. For the sake of emotional satisfaction of the child, or for the sake of emotional satisfaction of the parent, there are certain things that we do which we consider are wrong, but still we do it for the sake of emotional satisfaction. This is an easy example of spiritual violence that we are causing to ourselves and to the child. Karmanyeva adhikaraste. That is the guideline that we need to follow when we are spiritually confused. There are certain things which are right for the child, but immediately it doesn't seem the best thing to do. The child may get hurt physically, the child may get hurt mentally. And we stop our thinking to that, and we cannot see the child go through this because we cannot see the child's mental stress. So we prevent. For instance, if the child does not want to sit and practice meditation, we let go. Yes, there is of course the sanskar of the child which later may get rekindled within the child, and the child will attain whatever it was supposed to attain. But that is happening by the karma of the child. As a parent, the question still remains, did I do my duty? This is spiritual himsa. So, the guideline that should be used here is, we need to do what we need to do. This physical body is created in such a way that it will get hurt and it will perish. So, we should not be afraid of the physical burden. For the sake of thrill, there are a lot of adventurous activities that we take part in, risking our lives, risking our limbs, risking the happiness of our families. The same kind of thrill, the same kind of courage must be also exercised in spiritual development. So that is the meaning of spiritual violence and spiritual non-violence. So this same principle has to be applied to all other virtues which have been explained here in the chapter 13. And that is the real purpose of life. And then a person really becomes a devotee. How exactly do we decide what we're doing is right or wrong? A rough guideline could be, for each and every action that we carry out, we need to question ourselves. Where does this lead me to? Does this make me materially successful, or does this make me spiritually successful? Or even better, does this really lead me to the Supreme Lord? If the answer is yes, we go ahead and do it. That is the most right thing to do. It may not seem the best thing at that particular scenario. Nevertheless, it is the right thing to do, and hence we escape a lot of karma for the future lives. So this is spiritual non-violence. We do not preach wrong to the children or the society, or we do not practice anything wrong in the name of being right. Most often we are only materially right, spiritually very, very wrong. And hence, this is what is trying to be conveyed in this chapter 13 by each and every virtue which is explained. It's not confined or related to the material world at all. Being materially good need not be being spiritually good. This is necessary because this is what is going to lead us to the path of emancipation. Let's correct ourselves. Let us not be even greedy of emancipation, because a devotee is the one who never cares for what his current status is, in which world is he, which place is he. Nothing. All he is bothered about is attaining the Supreme Lord, being eligible for his mercy alone. Let us even give up the desire for liberation or emancipation. This is the most right thing to do, so let us do the right thing. So in that sense, all the virtues have to be understood.